Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Decisions are the hardest things to make, especially when it is a choice between where you should be and where you want to be. HR Association of India welcomes all of you to the 2020 Dialogue Masterclass Series, the first series of its kind on the topic Making Better Defensible Decisions. Before we begin with this session, I will take a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to run through some of the protocol while on Zoom, so many of you would be familiar. It is very important to follow these rules as in order to have an effective session. First, kindly do not record this meeting as this would be available on your social media pages. Request all of you to please keep your Zoom audios on mute and unmute it whenever instructed. Please use your full name as your screen name and not your device name, as it doesn't allow us to identify who you are. As your video is off and your name is not mentioned, we will have to move those participants to the waiting room for security reasons. So please cooperate. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We will be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. HRAI is a non-profit human resource association that firmly believes in delivering value through landmark summits, which offers unique opportunities for subject matter experts to share knowledge, which will help our members to learn about the latest advancements in technology and innovation. In the world of conference, we believe in leveraging the power of knowledge to deliver value to every participating delegate and organization at our event. This is the cornerstone of our drive towards excellence. I now take the privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Dr. Errol Verasinghe, President Shanmar Inc., expert US decision maker. A native of Sri Lanka, was educated in the UK. He has over 35 years of experience in decision making, optimization, creative thinking, and strategic planning for Shell Oil Company, Petroleos de Venezuela, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, Williams, and Enron. As an oil and gas industry specialist and a university professor, Errol has published papers on topics related to management, engineering, and economics. He has been involved in decision-making methodology since the early 70s when he was at Shell Oil Company. Today, this process is used in disciplines as diverse as budgeting, career planning, safety audits, real estate, purchasing, bid evaluation, recruiting, performance evaluation, customer banking, team solutions, etc. Fluent in English, Spanish, and Sinhalese, he has worked and trained professionals in Asia, Middle East, Europe, North America, and South America. He has a thorough understanding of the impact of culture and values on decision-making. His specialties include decision-making and negotiating skills. Without taking much time, I would now request Dr. Errol to take over this session. Over to you, Dr. Errol.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody. Welcome. I know I can't ask each of you to talk to me, but let's do our best with regard to the format. I'm going to show myself in a couple of videos, maybe 4 videos, and they are short videos. At the end of each video, we will pause and take your questions. Of course, you may put your questions in the chat session as you encounter them, but I will only come back to you just after the video. But keep your questions pertaining to the subject in the video, please, because we're going to have a couple of varied sessions. Thank you, and let's go on.
This video is about the consequences of the rapidly changing technological landscape and the need to innovate, especially after this pandemic. You probably haven't heard of a 94-year-old company called Dean Foods. Well, they are the largest milk producing company in the USA. Now, what do they have in common with WeWork, a startup with a valuation of $47 billion? Well, they both filed for bankruptcy in 2019, and that before the COVID-19. This is a wake-up call for founders of companies and legacy managers. Recall coaching guru Marshall Goldsmith's best-selling book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. What you have been doing in the past is not likely to hold true in the future.
And the second type of companies that will survive are the companies that are innovative. So if you are a company that has been doing a regular kind of a service and hope to just reopen and be normal in a year, I strongly personally doubt that's not going to work. You have to really know. Whatever you are doing, you can be a doctor, you can be an engineer, you can be a very small SME with 10 employees. But if you are planning to just do exactly what you were doing before and now also, that's not good.
You don't believe me? Well, ask the manufacturers of the camera, the flashlight, the calculator, the fax machine, the printer, the music player, the compass, the record player, mapping, GPS systems, payment gateways, banking, and a whole host of other products and services. They are reeling from the assault of this innocuous yet disruptive smartphone. Well, did I not mention Airbnb and Uber? Well, ask the hotels and the taxi. In today's rapidly evolving environment of big data and VUCA, the threat of obsolescence is knocking on every door. Ladies and gentlemen, no product or service, no technology, no industry, no company, or even an individual is immune from becoming irrelevant. And even if your product is unique and in high demand, is it time to bury it? Recall Kodak. They kept pouring money into the celluloid film, while the digital camera, which they themselves invented, was beginning to displace the film. Now what about BlackBerry? They were trying to improve and optimize the cell phone keypad when Apple came up with the touchscreen. Of course, the real heartbeat of this is the internal combustion engine. While many countries have issued an ultimatum on ICE cars, Norway, for example, has said no to ICE cars after 2025. Yet GM, Ford, Chrysler, etc. are still investing in ICE and hybrid vehicles. The message is loud and clear. Don't try to optimize that which should be buried. Now, when the automotive giants were tinkering with ways to help the driver, the likes of Elon Musk dared to ask, instead of a human driving the car, why not let the car drive the human? Well, this resulted in the birth of autonomous driving. Ladies and gentlemen, the smartphone was a disruptor. The electric car was a disruptor. Watch out, the next disruptor, blockchain, is already here. And if you're in the manufacturing business, you better keep an eye on graphene. Disruption and innovation is not something that happens only at the CXO level. It happens at all levels. It could be the use of better software, use of artificial intelligence or better tools, or an improvement to an existing business process. Everyone can and should be encouraged to disrupt and innovate.
The massive thing that can be done is to make sure your incentive structure is such that innovation is rewarded and lack of innovation is punished. There's got to be a carrot and a stick. If somebody is innovating, making good progress, they should be promoted sooner. And if somebody is completely failing to innovate, not every role requires innovation, but if they're in a role where innovation should be happening and it's not happening, then they should either not be promoted or exited. And let me tell you, you'll get innovation real fast.
The decisions you make will determine your future. Traits such as common sense, gut feel, logic, intuition, experience, judgment, etc. that you rely on to make crucial decisions will be tested to their limits. Ladies and gentlemen, the technology train is on the move. Get on it or move over. Otherwise, you run the risk of being over. Disruption and innovation are two sides of the same coin. It is indeed the antidote. Now, continuing their commitment to innovation, tech giants such as Facebook, Google, Twitter, and many more have adopted the work-from-home policy till beyond 2021. And the real kicker here is the US Congress. Even during the 1793 yellow fever outbreak and the 1918 Spanish influenza, and even after the 9/11 attacks, the US Congress refused to adopt virtual hearing. Yet, after this pandemic, they did the seemingly impossible and adopted virtual hearings and online voting. Beware, there will always be naysayers. Yet, if there's a will, there's a... CXOs and HR managers, the ball is now in your court. Get your folk trained. Encourage your folk to be disruptors. Give them the time, the space, and the resources to think creative.
Everybody, that was a teaser to get you to think in terms of disrupting and re-innovating, not just your company, even yourself. So, if you have any questions, I am now available. Questions? All right.
Yeah. So in case you have any questions over the video that you all have just seen, request to put it in the chat box. We will have Dr. Errol address that.
All right. Shall we move on to the next one then? Now we're going to start on decision making proper. Hold on. I got to do this thing about getting my screen share done. So give me a second here.
These days, everyone speaks of leadership development. Leadership has become a catch-all term. It can mean different things to different people. However, I can state quite emphatically that a leader must be able to A, make good decisions, and B, communicate and convince the team to execute it, that is to negotiate. Because every action is a decision and every interaction is a negotiation. In this two-part video, we will provide some valuable insights into these two areas. What we present here is applicable in your personal life as well. My steadfast belief that we have serious problems when making decisions is supported by two independent surveys. First, in a recent McKinsey survey of over 2,000 executives, only 28% said that the quality of decisions were really good. 60% thought that bad decisions were as frequent as good ones. And amazingly, the remaining 12% said good decisions were very rare. Second, a recent study by the Business Objects magazine showed that 93% of US managers had not had any formal training in decision making. No doubt you'll say that your success is proof that you make good decisions. It's the other guy who needs training. It's natural to think that judgment, experience, intuition, logic, common sense, etc. is the way to go. Because in the good old days, this is how great leaders went about their business. Of course, you don't hear of the sob stories and the fiascos. For example, TWA and Pan Am, the pioneers of air travel, are no more. Bad decisions at Kodak led to their bankruptcy. Billionaire Ross Perot admitted that two of his worst decisions were turning down early partnership opportunities in Microsoft and in Home Depot, each worth billions of dollars today. In 2008, Yahoo rejected a $44.6 billion bid from Microsoft. And then in 2017, when Yahoo was put up for sale, Verizon grabbed it for just $4.5 billion. When startup Netflix approached Blockbuster's CEO to partner with them, he laughed at the proposition. A few years later, Netflix forced the bankruptcy of Blockbuster. Coca-Cola, for example, invested millions of dollars in developing and launching New Coke. Yet they were forced to withdraw it in just 3 months after launch. These are just a few. There are hundreds more. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. It is easy to criticize those decisions in retrospect. I agree, no one can be expected to make the right decision all the time. However, if these unfortunate executives had approached these decisions with a little more curiosity, with an open mind, recognizing their own fallibility and limitations and the perils of the VUCA world, they might have seen the other side of the deal. Today's decision making is further complicated by big data. Managers receive real-time data on manpower, sales, budget, cash flow, financing, inventory, supplies, transport, share prices, competitor mergers, currency fluctuations, geopolitical and regulatory issues, and much more. This is big data. Managers are forced to integrate massive amounts of data into the decision-making process. Today you can have all the information you need and yet make suboptimal decisions. Why? Due to lack of training. And if you think you're in total control of your decisions, think again. Unbeknown to you, your decisions are being contaminated, if not manipulated. Subordinates impose constraints on what options are available to you. Some modify the environment to shape your decisions. Others actually manipulate your thought process with well-designed techniques. Some of the more well-known decision-making biases
are the loss aversion bias,
the interest bias, the tribal or social bias, overconfidence bias, the pattern recognition bias, the introduction bias, the confirmation bias, and the recency bias.
You must pay close attention to these.
How do we ensure we make good decisions? Well, everyone speaks of problem solving and decision making. I want to stress that problem solving is not decision making. Problem solving is identifying acceptable solutions, and decision making is selecting one to act upon. So let's keep them separate. Two of the most common types of decisions we face are multi-criteria decisions and single criterion decisions with uncertainties. When framing a problem, the assumptions you make reflect your understanding of the problem and what you consider to be relevant. These are the criteria that drive your decisions. But how relevant these criteria are is highly subjective. A common belief is that the more criteria you include, the better your decision will be. Not true. In fact, using a large number of criteria is counterproductive because it dilutes the impact of more significant criteria. Every decision or prediction you make is based on the likelihood of an event happening or when that event would occur. And the fact is, your data is X% correct and 100 minus X% wrong always. Furthermore, when dealing with probabilities, one should consider the event probability and the impact probability. Beware, teams do not guarantee better or safe decisions. While groups and teams can provide specialized knowledge and know-how, history has shown that groups are often ineffective at making optimum decisions. Some may recall the disasters of NASA space shuttles, Challenger and Columbia. How could an eminent organization as NASA have failed so catastrophically? A panel concluded that in the Columbia disaster, various committees had granted over 1,600 safety waivers. They were victims of groupthink. Since most decisions in the corporate world have to be approved by a high authority, your decisions must be defensible. It is difficult to defend a decision that has not been validated. The validation process explores the sensitivity of your decision to the assumptions and the data and the biases. Furthermore, you should not judge the quality of your decision by the outcome, because the outcome depends on the implementation as well. In spite of all my preaching, backed by 20 years of experience in this field, there are many who will insist there is no substitute for logic and intuition or gut decisions. Don't let your feelings hijack your behavior. Neurologically speaking, feelings and sensors first enter through the spinal cord and go through the limbic system where emotions are developed. It's only thereafter it reaches the frontal lobe where rational thinking is. We experience feelings before we can formulate a rational response. This is where intuition and logic collide. Yes, framing a problem correctly and modeling it is not an easy task. You have to decide when the outcome is serious enough to warrant modeling. I repeat, in today's world of big data and VUCA, you must reinforce your logic and intuition with analytical techniques.
If you're still confident that you make good decisions, then try this 4-minute multiple choice skill test.
Remember, leadership is top-down. However, most decisions are bottom-up because managers have to depend on subordinates and stakeholders to provide data, information, options, context, etc. So decision-making training is required across the board.
All right.
So yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So Dr. Arwal, we have received few questions. The first one is, what factors do we need to consider before taking a strategic decision?
Okay, let me see. I'm also seeing. So,
and also we have from the, yeah, go ahead, doctor.
I am actually looking at the thing, post questions here. What are the key ingredients for making effective? How can effectiveness don't have necessary or
yeah.
Okay, let me minimize this. Somebody's talking in the background. And that person muted. Okay, good. So if you were to ask the question, what factors, that is a function of your problem, because if you're finding a girlfriend, right, the factors that apply for finding a girlfriend is different to the factors you are for hiring a business development manager, or finding a location for a branch office, or leasing a property, or buying a home, or buying a car. So the factors pertain to your problem. So let me give you, for example, if you're buying a car, you might say price, resale value, maintenance, good looks, so all of those things, right? Now, if you're finding a girlfriend, it may be good looks and education and family background. So the factors are very different. And that is where a lot of people fail actually. They fail to actually understand, we call them in our lingo, criteria. Criteria are the factors that impact your decision. And my advice to you is, when you're looking for criteria, please have a brainstorming session, because you're going to miss out on some very relevant criteria and your decision is going to be hell bad. Any questions, anything else?
Yeah, so the most important aspects are the data and the criteria that needs to be there in place that would enable you to make an effective decision, correct?
Yeah, so basically, before you go for the data, you need to identify your criteria. Then you look for data that pertains to those criteria. You don't want data that is not pertinent. So
Absolutely.
If you're a very rich family, don't go around looking about the girl's dowry. You don't want data about the dowry, because that's irrelevant to your decision. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. So the next one is how to eliminate gap between a decision and execution.
Well, interesting question. I made a statement quite broadly. At the first instance, you might all be shocked because you use it all the time. And I'm going to repeat it. Do not judge the quality of the decision by the outcome. I repeat, do not judge the quality of your decision by the outcome. Now, why do I say that? Because a good decision has two components. A good quality decision and a good implementation. So it doesn't matter how good your decision is if you have a terrible implementation. And I give an example. I do a lot of work with the telecom industry. And I said, okay, one telecom company went to a big mountain in Sri Lanka, and they said, we are going to put a cell tower up there. So the engineers went in, looked at the wind speed, soil quality, rainfalls, and all of that stuff. And they designed a fantastic piece of work, a good tower. But then they found a local contractor and told him to build it up, the foundation. That guy cheated and put more sand than cement. The ratio was wrong. 6 months later, the tower came down. Was the problem in the quality of the decision? It was in the implementation. So you cannot, now, of course, when you make the decision, you must keep in mind implementation, which is a criterion. But we're not concerned. We don't know at that time if the decision is going to be implemented properly. That's an entirely separate department, different people. It's a completely different, okay? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, so there's one more. Yeah. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So there is another question from Mr. Chandan Singh. He says, how can we feel confident about our decision? Fear of feeling down is getting our confidence low. I believe, I think so he meant fear of falling down is getting our confidence low.
Okay. That's a subject I will address in another video that's coming up later on in this. A lot of people ask me this question, can I be confident about this? I'm actually writing a paper on a similar topic as well. So for Mr. Chandan, just to address this carefully, most people make decisions on the one fundamental driver, which is fear of loss. Most people make a decision not what you can gain, but to avoid what you would lose. And that's the first mistake, because you don't know how to make a decision. When you do make the decision, which is common sense, gut feel, logic, etc., you're always going to question it. But the way we teach decision making, we use a methodology, which I'll show you later on in this session. There is no reason to worry about it. We guarantee the decision, but more importantly, we convince you to believe in it. Okay, we'll get to it soon.
Sure, Doctor.
Can we, anything else?
Yeah, so there is another question from Suma Sarareddy. How can we make better decision in case of dilemmas?
The first reason you make a decision is because you're facing a dilemma. If you have only one guy to get married to, that's not a dilemma. If you have two guys, that's a dilemma and you must make the decision. So you make decisions because you've got multiple issues in the first place. So that's a given. So if you'll forgive me for having a chuckle over it in a respectful way, please. Better decision is a different thing. So we start by saying, we are going to make a decision because of this. In fact, somebody should ask the question, or I will ask the audience, and let's see if you can answer this. And I really would appreciate if you would participate. Why do we have to make decisions? This is a shocking question. You see, you have to be a fundamental thinker. And this is very important, which are thought leaders' jobs. We ask the most fundamental questions. You saw in the previous video, I went deep down in that. So now I'm going to ask you a simple question. I'll ask a second one later on. So my question is, why do we have to make decisions? Anybody?
So we have a response from Mr. Pankaj Verma.
Okay.
For various decisions, we work as per the current scenarios and the available data from various stakeholders, and we take decision based on the data, and later on, we face a situation wherein the data was wrong and the entire process move towards shutdown. What do to avoid such scenarios from start? What do we do to avoid such scenarios from the start?
Well, let me put it this way. When we make a decision, there's a timeline. If the decision is required by date X, we have to make it before that date X. If not, time will make the decision for you. You may not like the outcome. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't make a decision, it will happen for you, whether you like it or not. If your car is running and making a noise and you don't look into it, the car will stop. You may not like the idea. So that's the first thing, right? Now, take COVID-19. I have a friend of mine here in Sri Lanka, a large company actually. They built a hotel because there's a shortage of hotels in Sri Lanka. And then came in COVID-19. That hotel is empty. And it's going to be empty probably for another year or more. Would we have avoided it? Never in a lifetime. So changing circumstances that you don't have control over, don't cry over it. It's like you getting married to a young girl. She was pretty great. Everything is okay. 5 years later, you divorce because she changed. Circumstances change, whatever it is. So don't cry. You're doing the best with whatever you have. Our job is, and I'm going to make a statement, and please listen carefully, because this is an important statement. And when I say, if you have a question, please ask. It does not matter how scanty, how feeble, how few data points you have. Our methodology will give you a better decision that you can ever reach using your gut feel and common sense. And we're going to show it to you later on. I repeat, it doesn't matter how poor the data is, how feeble and how scanty it is. We will show you a method that will do a better job than with your common sense can.
So, Doctor, are we open to take another question, or you move to the video? Yeah.
No, I'm okay.
Yeah. So we have another question from Mr. Pavan. He's saying today we have more number of HRs in the system who come from strong academic background, but not having ground knowledge. The concern is they end up reporting to non-HR members what concept of defensive decision can help them grow out of these catch-22 situations?
I am not sure how that fits into the decision-making world. What you didn't say is, by the way, yes, I have my doctorate degree. I'm a research scientist. I have many PhD students who took their PhDs. But ladies and gentlemen, when I was 15, I was a blacksmith and a welder. So I started from the ground. But today, we give them degrees and put them right on top. That's okay, provided their job does not require them. But big companies, when they hire these high-powered academics or high-powered, what we call high-potential people, within the first 2 years, we have sent them around the entire company, forming them. 3 months here, 6 months here, 6 months here. Let them, before they become comfortable sitting in a chair, we run them through the gamut, because they need to understand what it is to really work at the ground level. But companies have other interests. They want to get the job done. They don't have time to train you. I've always said, and with due respect, HR might not agree with me, I've always told staff that I teach in front of HR managers, the happiest day for me is when a person leaves the company and finds a better job. Because this is your future, you should own it. Don't wait till the company trains you. The company's job is to look after the company's interests. If it fits in with the company, great. But your future, you better own it.
So Dr. Arul, to your earlier question of why do we have to make decisions, we have received few responses where we have got it from Vani Prasad. We make decision which is dependent on situations and the need of DR for betterment. And one from Srividya, we make decision to redesign.
Okay, I will give you the answer that I think is the right answer, but you can argue over it. You can, oh, by the way, all of you, please get on me, connect me with LinkedIn, reach out to me, or you have my WhatsApp number on my LinkedIn profile. I don't hide myself and I answer every phone call. So if you want to reach out to me, you're free to reach out. Okay, now let me answer that question. Why we make decision is because there's something called change. If nothing changes, we don't make decisions. We make decisions either to change something or because something changed. Number two, this triggers the need for the decision. And at the end, we make a decision to be happy and comfortable. Nobody makes a decision to be sad. If I am working and my sister is working in a company and my boss says, I want you to fire your sister because we can't afford COVID-19 is killing us. And I say, well, not really. She's divorced, she's got 3 kids, I can afford it. Why don't I resign and let her stay? Why did I make that decision? Because that makes me happy that I'm giving her something. But when I go home, my wife says, forget your sister. What about our family? Go back and say, fire her. Now I have to decide, do I make my wife happy or do I make my sister happy? For the day, whatever I do, I am looking to be happy and comfortable. So we make decisions. So again, change triggers the need for decisions and we make decisions to be happy and comfortable. Nothing else. That is an absolute truth. I can argue all day later on. Continue.
Yes, sir. Just give us a minute. We'll have all the participants mute themselves so we can have them, because there's a lot of background noise also that is coming in. Okay, so while we...
Okay, Peter, Dr. Arul, can you try unmuting yourself?
Yeah. So are you able to hear me? Dr. Arul, are you able to hear me? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did now, just unmuted myself.
Okay. So we have this, yeah, great. I can hear you. So we have received other responses too. We have received one from Yatrik Mehta. We need to take decisions to know how it will get implemented and to make things better. And there is also an example shared by Suma Sarareddy. For example, if we take two scenarios, it has both positives and negative equally. Then what steps we take for that to be a good decision?
Wait for the next couple of videos. It will be answered.
Great. And then we have from Mr. Pankaj Verma, believe decision is a mandate requirement to make a move. We can't start a car if we will not decide to start. Agreed. He agreed to the scenario that you gave as an example. Question is, how to handle a situation where your decision convert into something else due to the current culture, as it is mandate to showcase and add other suggestions to it. And finally, once your decision will come on implementation table, it looks like a stranger to you.
Well, one of the things, and I probably you folks don't know, we do workshops on decision making. We cover all of these things at the workshop, but in essence, don't make a decision in isolation. Don't make it a surprise to your boss and your colleagues. Get them involved at all stages so that when the implementation comes, it's not a surprise. Everybody knows what's involved. By the way, I'm actually quite surprised in a nice way. The video was about disruption and innovation. I haven't had one question on disruption and innovation. Why is that? What happened? Did you guys listen to the video or not? Sorry.
Yeah. So here one more question from Mr. Pavan. Please throw some insight on hindsight scrutiny and its application in modern era in Industry 4.0 in VUCA environment.
I didn't understand that question.
I repeat, please throw some insight on hindsight scrutiny and its application in modern era of Industry 4.0 in VUCA environment.
Well, it's a long story. We can't do it on this screen. Can he reach me privately, please? And we will take it on because it's kind of not related to the actual education. It's a general conversational topic. So will you forgive me if I don't take it on at this time, okay?
Sure. So the next one is from Preeti. How is HR? What can be a further future and how can innovation be possible in the mid-management level? Improve the future of HR.
HR is
innovation.
Yeah, HR people, all of you, please engage in blockchain. HR is going to get hit by blockchain, and if you don't know it, you're going to be left behind. Blockchain is an entirely new technology, new concepts. Most of people know about Bitcoin, but it's not just that. It is venturing into the HR field. A simple example is now universities are beginning to issue certificates, graduation certificates with a blockchain code. So you don't send your certificate anymore, you send the code, which cannot be changed. And the employer can see it immediately from that, where you graduated from, what did you get, all the details. So HR is coming, HR is heavy. For example, I have helped several companies on the recruitment side and also on the layoff side. Performance management, all of those are decision-making processes. So there's a huge application for HR in this field. Because wherever you are making decisions, and I have, since I focus on decision-making and negotiating, I coined this phrase, every action is a decision and every interaction is a negotiation. Anytime two people engage in a telephone conversation, it is a negotiation. When you write an email to somebody, it's a negotiation. It's not to win anything or another. It is to say, will you buy into my thinking? Right. Okay, should we not move on? Otherwise, we might...
Yes, yeah, we move on to the next video, sir.
Okay. I think I already had that. Let me see if I can share the screen here.
Highly reputable universities provide irrefutable evidence that your decisions are indeed contaminated. Is our personality in our DNA?
Dr. Chopra comes at this as a doctor, as a scientist, and a very eloquent speaker, given us so much to think about.
We've been able to look at the brain. We've been able to look at gene expression. We've been able to look at cell markers of aging, telomerase, telomere length. We've been able to look at what are called inflammatory markers. In other words, everything that's happening in the body at a biological cell level. And then we're looking at what is called the epigenome, which is the shell of proteins outside the genome, and how these work together. And what we are finding is remarkable. You know, in the beginning, nobody would believe us, but now we have collaborations with Harvard, UCSF, UCSD, Scripps, with digital technology, with Duke University, with Mount Sinai. We can look at a blood sample, and we can tell you if you're experiencing samadhi occasionally or not, if your mind is quiet or not, if you're falling into the place where he
even that our parents experience it.
Parents too. In fact, the epigenetic shows that your experiences now, which are not in your brain, by the way. Everybody says, my experience is in my brain. It's not in your brain. Your experiences are not in your body. Your experiences are in a non-local consciousness, which is not in space-time. In Hawaii, they have these temples and cow farms. If a cow has been zapped electrically, the next generation of cows will not go to the fence. They already know it's electrical and they might get shocked. Okay. Then the following generation. Now, people have done experiments right here where you take mice and you have them smell wintergreen, which is a very pleasant smell. Then they get mild electrical shocks. The next 7 generations of mice will be scared by smelling wintergreen. Where is the seat of this personality? Where is it coming from?
So the question is it in our DNA? Do we have control, or are we responding to someone else's behavior?
To show this, we took 2 men, Mr. Nice and Mr. Nasty, and placed them in a controlled environment. Then we asked several volunteers to meet them and discuss different subjects.
Favourite films?
Yeah, well, got plenty of those.
You go first.
What the volunteers didn't know was that while Mr. Nice was being friendly and warm, Mr. Nasty was being as negative and as difficult as possible.
Not really.
But crucially, both Mr. Nice and Mr. Nasty have been asked to deliberately move their bodies in specific ways.
So you got any more favourites?
While cameras watched for a response in the volunteers that would reveal what was going on in their mind. Gradually, as the conversations developed, an extraordinary thing began to happen. The volunteers with Mr. Nice gradually began to copy him.
They kind of used those well, and the acting was so good, they kind of all got away with it. And the other ones, Last of the Mohicans.
No,
I mean, there's no reason to suggest that we should like that, but there's some...
Meanwhile, those with Mr. Nasty didn't copy him at all.
Well, I'm really enjoying 24 at the moment. Have you seen that?
Saw it once. Yeah, I didn't like it very much.
No?
No.
And I think it's the sort of thing I like going to the cinema myself.
Because the volunteers like Mr. Nice,
I mean, some people say they like to, share this.
Their mind prompted them to mimic him.
No, I often go by myself.
A subconscious attempt to strengthen the bond between them.
Well, that's what everyone says, it's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, I think if you do it, it's difficult.
Fantastic.
Consider this study of modifying the environment.
Yes, persuasion. Persuasion is the practice of getting people sympathetic to your message before they experience it. It is what you say immediately before you deliver your messages. There's this interesting study. A guy goes to a shopping mall in France, and he tries to get women's phone numbers as they pass various shops so he can call for a date. One of them is a shoe store, and another was a bakery. But in neither of those cases was he very successful. He only got a number 13% of the time. But there was one kind of shop that doubled his success rate when women were passing it. A flower shop. Why? Because flowers put women in a mindset of romance.
Not consciously, persuasive.
If we are paying attention to something, that's how we decide to pay attention. But a communicator can reroute our attention to something that isn't important, but make it seem important as a consequence. Now, marketers, some of them, have studied persuasion's potency. One online furniture store tested images of fluffy clouds to cold hard cash on its homepage. Those who saw the background depiction of clouds searched the site for more comfortable furniture. Those who went to the site that had money in the background became cost conscious and preferred to purchase less expensive furniture. Almost no one recognizes that the clouds or the coins had any impact on it.
What we do in our experiment, we very briefly expose people to a warm or cold substance. And what we expect to happen is that simple experience with a warm substance or a cold substance will prime people to sort of activate these feelings of warmth and comfort and the things that we've learned about since we were very young.
Volunteers for the experiment are asked to hold a warm cup of coffee as they are met by Lawrence. They have been primed with heat. The purpose of the experiment is to record participants' judgments about Lawrence's colleague, Randy.
How was your day? It was awesome.
Oh, good. Until I got stranded in Florida because of a snowstorm. In New York on Friday. So.
And here's the killer question. Would you give Randy a permanent job?
Based on your brief interaction with Randy, would you hire him as project manager?
So generally, sure. Yes. Friendly guy. So yeah, I would say.
Yeah, why not?
Saying warm things about a stranger might just be the normal polite response. Time to cool things down. Except for the temperature of the drink. Identical conditions. The same conversation with Randy.
How was your break? Exactly that.
And 6 minutes later, the same questions from Lawrence.
Based on your brief interaction with him, would you recommend him or would you hire Randy as project manager?
As a leader? Sure. Based on the brief interaction? No.
Maybe not from the impression that I got.
The experiment shows, remarkably, that a brief encounter with a beverage could see you either hired or fired. It's a powerful effect, and one that might have worrying applications.
Dr. Daniel Kahneman received the Nobel Prize for his work on behavioral economics. Here he speaks of the two systems that we humans rely on to make decisions.
At the heart of human thinking, there's a conflict between logic and intuition that leads to mistakes.
This question concerns this nice bottle of champagne I have here. Millesine 2005 is a good year, genuinely nice vintage bottle.
These people think they're about to use slow, sensible System 2 to make a rational decision about how much they would pay for a bottle of champagne. But what they don't know is that their decision will actually be taken totally without their knowledge by their hidden, fast autopilot, System 1. And with the help of a bag of ping pong balls, we can influence that decision.
I've got a set of numbered balls here from 1 to 100 in this bag. I'd like you to reach in and draw one out at random for me, if you would.
First, they've got to choose a ball.
Number says 10. 10.
10.
10.
They think it's a random number, but in fact it's rigged. All the balls are marked with the low number 10.
What we do is purposefully we give people a first decision that is clearly meaningless.
Would you be willing to pay £10 for this nice bottle of vintage champagne?
I would, yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
This first decision is meaningless, based as it is on a seemingly random number. But what it does do is lodge the low number 10 in their heads. Now for the real question, where we ask them how much they'd actually pay for the champagne.
What's the maximum amount you think you'd be willing to pay?
20?
Okay.
£7.
£7, okay.
Probably £10.
A range of fairly low offers. But what happens if we prime people with a much higher number, 65 instead of 10?
What does that one say? 65. 65, okay.
65.
Okay.
It says 65.
How will this affect the price people are prepared to pay?
What's the maximum you would be willing to pay for this bottle of champagne?
40?
£45.
45, okay.
50. 40 quid.
Okay.
£50.
£50?
Yeah, I'd pay between 50 and 80 pounds. I guess.
Between 50 and 80?
Yeah.
Logic has gone out the window. The price people are prepared to pay is influenced by nothing more than a number written on a ping pong ball.
Let's look at the use of ghost options to influence your decision.
Imagine I give you a choice. You want to go for a weekend to Rome, all expenses paid, hotel, transportation, food, breakfast, the continental breakfast, everything, or a weekend in Paris. Now, weekend in Paris, weekend in Rome, these are different things. They have different food, different culture, different art. Now, imagine I added a choice to the set. Imagine I said a weekend in Rome, a weekend in Paris. What if it was a trip to Rome, all expenses paid, transportation, breakfast, but doesn't include coffee in the morning? If you want coffee, you have to pay for it yourself. It's €2.50. Now, in some ways, given that you can have Rome with coffee, why would you possibly want Rome without coffee? It's an inferior option. But guess what happened? The moment you add Rome without coffee, Rome with coffee become more popular and people choose it. The fact that you have Rome without coffee makes Rome with coffee look superior, and not just to Rome without coffee, even superior to Paris. Here are two examples of this principle. This was an ad from The Economist a few years ago that gave us three choices. An online subscription for $59, a print subscription for $125, or you could get both for $125. I took this and I gave it to 100 MIT students. I said, what would you choose? And these are the market share. Most people wanted the combo deal. Thankfully, nobody wanted the dominated option. But now, if you have an option that nobody wants, you take it off, right? So I printed another version of this when I eliminated the middle option, and I gave it to another 100 students. Here's what happens. Now the most popular option became the least popular, and the least popular became the most popular. What was happening is that option that was useless in the middle was useless in a sense that nobody wanted it. But it wasn't useless in the sense that it helped people figure out what they wanted. In fact, relative to the option in the middle, which was only the print for $125, the print and web for $125 looked like a fantastic deal. And as a consequence, people chose it. The general idea here, by the way, is that we actually don't know our preferences that well. And because we don't know our preferences that well, we're susceptible to all of these influences from the external forces.
This practice is quite evident at McDonald's. Here's a sample menu of fries at McDonald's. A small fry cost $1.39, a medium $1.79, and a large $1.89. As you can see, when you buy a small fry, you get 37 grams for 70 cents. But if you move from the medium to the large, you get 35 grams for just 10 cents more. Ladies and gentlemen, the medium fries is a ghost option that McDonald's has placed, knowing fully well that you will move to the large fries. In addition to the well-known biases we cited earlier, research studies conducted by reputable universities are highlighting some serious facts that our decisions are indeed contaminated and manipulated. In this video,
All right. Now, if I take questions, we may run out of time. How much time do I have? That's my worry now.
So we have another 5 minutes, sir.
Can we continue at least another 10 minutes or 15 minutes at least?
Yeah, absolutely fine, sir. We can definitely go ahead.
So let's hold back all questions and let me get on with the next video because that's the most important video. And then we'll come back to questions, okay?
Sure, sir.
This is going to address a lot of the analytical.
An insight into analytical decision making. Imagine you have been asked to purchase 200 laptops for your company, or even one just for yourself. Where do you start? With some criteria. Criteria are things that you like and want and prefer. Maybe screen size, a hard drive, etc. Then you go on Google and you look for available laptops. Then you grab all the data and compile it into a table. And now you keep gazing at this. Which one? How would you decide? Well, there are many ways that we decide. Some pray for divine intervention. Others seek advice from fortune tellers, maybe use dictatorial methods, or through teams and consensus, establish rules, pattern recognition, tradition and superstition. As you know, in a skyscraper, we don't have the 13th floor, or on a plane, you'll never see row 13. So there is a lot of superstition. What about gambling and luck and intuition and logic and experience? We may even postpone and delay hoping it'll go away. And finally, we might delegate to somebody else because you don't want the responsibility. There's also analytical methods that we can talk about. Imagine you just won the US green card lottery and you're planning on moving to a more suitable location in the USA, and you ask for my help. Let's see what your preferences are. What are the criteria? And you might say you like to be at restaurants and you want doctors' offices, or you're concerned about pollution and crime or access to family. You have your own requirements. These are your criteria. And I give you 7 cities with all the data pertaining to your criteria. Can you now make a common sense decision? Wow, you look at this day and night and you say, oops, too much information. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not that there's too much information. It's simply you have not been trained. Now this could be selecting a supplier, hiring an employee, locating a branch office. You're going to have a table like this and you're going to keep looking at it. We have developed a 7-step approach. Now steps 3, 6 and 7 have the letters AHP next to them. That stands for Analytic Hierarchy Process, which is a process to get through these difficult steps.
All decisions are based on some form of comparison. We cannot look at this picture and say this person is tall or short. But when we compare him to another person, we see that he is short. Thus, all decisions are relative, not absolute. Imagine you're at an airport lounge and you're watching the TV screen and 2 pictures are presented. And you're asked to distribute 100 points among these ladies. 60-40, 30-70, whatever it is. Difficult? Probably not. Now you're shown 4 pictures and asked to distribute 100 points. Difficult? Probably a bit more. Now you're faced with 7 pictures. This time it requires much more attention and you're probably ready to give up. Let's get back to the pair. Would you say that the pair was the easiest to handle? Obviously. Would you agree that as the number of contestants increased, it became increasingly more difficult to make a reliable judgment? Let's take a look at a problem in the real world. Your manager wants to promote you but wants you to find a replacement. So you start with a set of criteria. Here we have 37 criteria and you're asked to select those that are applicable to your particular job. You might select 10, 15, whatever the number is. Now imagine 7 candidates are presented as well. Now in the previous example where I presented pictures of ladies, I only showed you the face. I did not show the body, the walk, the talk, the swimsuits, nothing. And even when you dealt with one single criterion, that of beauty, you had difficulty deciding between the 7 candidates. How do you think you would handle 10 or 15 criteria? It's almost impossible. Additionally, there are multiple decision makers. How would you make a defensible decision? This is a 3D problem with multiple criteria, multiple candidates, and multiple decision makers. Most certainly beyond common sense decision making.
Hopefully by now you are convinced that without a robust technique, you are likely to make some serious mistakes.
As you can see, the AHP complete solution is very complex, highly mathematical, but you don't have to worry about it. We provide you with free software to navigate this very easily. To better understand this, let's consider our laptop purchase, right? So here we have our criteria. So how do we go about this? Well, we consider only a pair of criteria at a time and express the dominance of one over the other using a scale. By dominance, I mean the importance, the preference, or the likelihood. So if you're considering screen size and hard drive, I will ask you, how much more do you like the screen size compared to the hard drive? And you express using our scale of dominance. Let's take a different viewpoint. Imagine you've just had dinner with a friend and he wants to know whether you'd like a cake or fruit salads for dessert. Which one would you like more? And you say, I love cake. How much more do you like cake over fruit salad? And you say, moderate. Ladies and gentlemen, even the most complex problem can be solved with these two basic questions using the AHP methodology. Now let's go into decision validation using AHP.
Multi-criteria decision-making using the analytic hierarchy process. Most of the decisions we make in the real world are multi-criteria in nature. Typical examples would be procurement, recruiting, local branch offices, etc. The best way to explain this is to consider a hotel chain hiring a business development manager. They identify 6 criteria and 4 candidates. Let us now look at the AHP software that we have developed. I have set up the recruiting problem, and when I hit continue, we have the criteria and the candidates that I have already inserted. We move on to the judgment table. The criteria judgment provides pairwise comparison. All you have to do is remember 2 simple questions. Which one? How much? So the first question is between availability and leadership. Which one is important to us? Availability. Then between availability and salary, you might say salary. You proceed with this, and when you finish, you simply say, OK, and you hit continue. Now you're presented the candidate judgment, which is identical with the previous case. On this occasion, you're offered 1 criteria with multiple candidates. Once again, we answer the 2 questions. Which one? How much? To say which candidate is more important than the other one, and to what degree. We do this for each criterion. When you finish, press OK, and we are presented the criteria weights and the candidate rankings. Once we complete the evaluation, we generate a graph using the chart maker. We see that the optimal decision is Mary. Additionally, we have 6 bands. This is known as the N-1 evaluation. Here we have removed availability. Here we have removed leadership. And here we have removed salary, etc. And if salary is not an issue, Sue is a far better. Could you have made better defensible decisions relying on common sense alone? Probably not.
Well, we can study decision validation. This is the study of the sensitivity of our decision to the original assumption. This is vital for management. You can also use the AHP methodology for cost-benefit analysis. Going back to our laptop, let's use this on experts, but we won't use price. We will determine the benefits and then simply plot a graph which shows that the Acer and Dell have similar benefits. The Acer is significantly cheaper than the Dell, so management can make the correct decision. What we just saw was problems with multiple criteria and multiple candidates. Now let us look at problems with multiple uncertainties. Imagine you have won a contract to supply some minerals to a chip company, and you can only get these from West African countries of Angola, Congo, and Liberia. Availability, price, logistics, and freight are all equal, but you must buy only from one country because of volume discount. Political instabilities could disrupt supplies. That's what your finance people tell you. Can you make a common sense decision based on available information? Not really. You don't have anything to go by. What additional information would you like? Maybe the likelihood of these things happening. This is called event probability. Well, I'll tell you that the Congo riots, there's a 25% chance, and there's a 30% chance of a coup in Angola, and a 35% chance of a new government in Liberia. Can you now make a common sense decision? Not really, because we don't know how these impact our contract. This is called impact probability. So let's say for Congo, with the 25% probability of riots, there's a 20% chance that we would not suffer any losses. A 50% chance we would lose 34% of our contract, and 30% chance we would high as much as 48%. And now what about the other two countries? Ladies and gentlemen, we have now 21 data points. Can we make a common sense decision? Oops, too much information again. With event probability and impact probability, the best way to understand this is to consider a car crash and a plane crash. Imagine on your way home today somebody bumps you at the back. There could be a 10% chance that could happen, right? That's the event probability. Maybe there's a 50% chance your car gets damaged and a 20% chance that you too might get injured. But in the case of a plane crash, the likelihood of a crash, the likelihood of the event probability is very, very small. But the impact is pretty serious that you will die. So when dealing with uncertainties, we must consider EP and IP. Let's take a real life problem.
Single criterion decisions with multiple uncertainties using decision trees and D-zone maps. Gengen Pharmaceuticals are developing a new drug for the treatment of diabetes, thrombosis, and cholesterol. However, Gengen can invest only in one of these projects. The cost of pursuing these products, for the preliminary test, we would spend $2.5 million, and for the FDA approval, there would be a cost of $500,000. The marketing department has arrived at potential revenues from these projects. Here too, there are some uncertainties. There's a potential for high revenue or low revenue. For example, for cholesterol, the high revenue would be $13 million, while the low would be $7 million. Uncertainties facing Gengen are, will the preliminary test be successful? Will the FDA approve the new drugs? Will sales generate the projected revenues? The question for Gengen is, which product? We can start with a 50-50 assumption for all uncertainties, and then study the impact of such assumptions on the final decision. Action plan. First, draw the DT sketch, then develop the Excel model, then plot the D-zone map, and finally study the uncertainties. Here we have the sketch for the decision tree. We have three options, and let's focus on thrombosis. If the preliminary tests are successful, then we proceed for FDA approval. And if FDA approval is granted, we proceed to market, and there is a potential for high revenue or low revenue. Similarly for the other two projects. Now to step 2, where we build the Excel decision tree, and in this case, it is for the preliminary tests. Once we complete the decision tree model, with one click, we can create the D-zone map. The model creates 3 zones for the 3 decisions: thrombosis, cholesterol, and diabetes. The zone in which the red pointer lands is the recommended decision. Here we have 3 axes. One is for diabetes, the next is for cholesterol, and up here is the thrombosis. When I change the probability of success, the decision is thrombosis. If I change the probability of thrombosis success to 70%, again the recommendation is for thrombosis. What is important to notice is the distance of the pointer from these demarcation lines tells you the degree of freedom you have with regard to your assumptions. In this case, when the probability of diabetes success drops below 46%, the decision should be for thrombosis. Zone map such as this gives you tremendous flexibility to understand the sensitivity of your assumptions to the final decision. Could you have made better defensible decisions relying on common sense alone? Probably not.
Sure, anyone can make a decision and live with the consequences of a suboptimal decisions. But it will be very difficult to defend such a decision in a corporate setting. You must incorporate analytics to reinforce your company.
All right, we got through that. That was tough. I know we've run over time, but I'm up to you guys. I have another 10 minutes worth of stuff if you want to hear, but if anybody wants to leave, I'm okay too. Or if you want to ask questions, I'm okay. I have another at least half an hour available for you guys.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So we do have time. We have one question that we have received. How can we avoid biasness? How not to get influenced by others?
You saw the 2 videos I showed you, and in that,
correct.
Your decisions are contaminated and you don't even know it. I showed you many, many ways people make you decide the way they want. I often, because I teach negotiating also, I tell people, I can make the negotiators come to my way of thinking because they don't know what they want. And it's a tough call. You go to a shop, you don't know what's being done to you. You saw the simple problem with the ping pong balls, number 10 and number 65, and you were a sucker. You saw the hot and cold. Now, when I go to see in the Silicon Valley, when I visit a company, let's say Mr. Joe, on the way I call Joe up and I say, hey, Joe, I'm passing through a Starbucks. Can I get you a cup of coffee? He says, sure. What am I doing? Something hot in his hand. He comes to my way of thinking. It's an innocuous cup of coffee. It's amazing how badly you're being contaminated. There was a ghost option I showed that McDonald's uses, Walmart uses. Now in your own companies, you saw the website, when they changed from clouds to coins, the reaction was so different. People didn't even know they had seen that. So ladies and gentlemen, there's so much to learn about decision making. And amazingly enough, 22 years ago when I started this, nobody had touched this topic. And even to date, I have not seen one other person in the world practicing this. In my website, if you go to it, you'll say, I openly say, the only person in the whole world that is doing it. So you have a privilege of hearing all of this. Now the question is, don't go back to becoming the same old person. Because as Marshall Goldsmith, the guru, said, what got you here will not get you there. Whatever you're there is. You have to change. And if you want, I have another 5-minute video I can show you to really make you think, but it's up to you.
Absolutely, sir. We'll go ahead with it.
Yeah, please do, because it's really worthwhile seeing that, and then we can see that. I don't know what happened. I lost myself here.
So are you not able to share it?
Yeah, I can't seem, I'm restarting Zoom. Something happened. Now it's asking to join. You may want to come on to me on WhatsApp, please, okay? In case I lose you.
So we wait until Dr. Errol is able to join us back. It will be in a minute's time.
We're on now. Something happened. I'm sorry. Okay?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. We are not able to see you.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get my screen share done. Give me a chance. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir. We can see the screen. So is it possible to enlarge it?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Last year? Yeah, it's the same. But sometimes, how possible to ask? Well, no, the exam is the same. The answers have changed. So that's right. We live in a world where the questions might be the same, but the answers have changed. In other words, what has got you here?
Dr. Errol, the volume is pretty low. If you can just increase the volume.
Through innovations.
Yeah, good.
Well, You need to start doing
Yes.
something.
Yes, doctor, it is good.
But let me first introduce you to an interesting observation. Whenever people, teams, and organizations hit a wall, they tend to do one of two things. They either do more of the same things, or they do less of the same things. But seldom do you see that they start to do something different. And if you look at the data, approximately 3% of people are inclined to do different things. Why is that? And also, what is going on? The answer requires us to ask another question. What we need to ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of thinking? Now, if you were to ask a neuroscientist, he will say that the purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. Yes, the purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. Thinking is a high energy activity. It takes a lot of energy to think. So whenever we think, we try to think as short as possible, and then we return to automatic pilot. For example, if someone asks us, what is 2 times 3?
So the volume clarity is not like the earlier way that we could hear. Is it possible to increase it further?
95% of our life, we run on automatic pilot. For
I'm
example,
on max.
if you've ever driven a car,
Oh, okay. I believe the player volume is low, down.
you just arrived at your destination and your brain was on autopilot. Possible. And then we return to autopilot. For example, if someone asks us, what is 2 times 3?
Yeah, better.
The answer, we know it's 6. However, if you were to ask what is 8 times 17, we have to think. Over 95% of our life, we run on automatic pilot. For example, if you've ever driven a car and you realize, oh, what did I do in the past half an hour? Now, you just arrived at your destination and your brain was on autopilot. Now, if your brain is on autopilot, this leads us to what scientists call ventral myopia, also known as tunnel vision. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, we tend to think inside the box. Now, the boundaries of this box are very well defined. There are legal boundaries, there are physical boundaries, there are moral boundaries. For example, if I say, what shall we have for dinner tonight? What would be our options? You're likely to say, buy some pizza, go to a restaurant, cook at home, etc. All kind of cool ideas. But I believe very few of you would hand and say, hey, let's go to the highway close by and see if we can pick up some dead animal on the road and prepare ourselves a crispy dinner. That is indeed a disturbing thought. But for many people in the world, this would be a perfectly normal response. So what it shows is that the box in which we think is actually very, very small. And if you were to take a closer look at your industry or professional field, you also think inside a very small box. For example, if you're in the restaurant business, that industry standard is that people come to your establishment, they eat, and then they pay. That is the standard. That is how everyone is doing it. Another example, if you're in the banking business, the norm is that people give you money, and you say thank you very much, and you give the money to someone else. That is banking. In other words, if you do what everyone else is doing, you get the results that everyone else is getting, and those are the normal results. So the key question is, of course, how can you pick yourself out of this very small box of your industry or professional field and move to a happy place where cool innovation happens? How can you do that? Well, take the case of London taxi drivers. If you want to become a taxi driver in London, you need to know the entire city by heart, and this is called the knowledge. And as you can imagine, it takes years to get this knowledge into your head. And that's a bigger problem if you want to rapidly expand your taxi business. So they ask themselves the question, how can we rapidly expand our taxi business while employing drivers who do not know anything about the city of London? And then they came up with an ingenious solution. Let's make 2 kinds of taxis. One that is a normal taxi, and the other taxi which has a big sign on it says, this driver does not know the city of London. You need to give directions. And that's a brilliant solution because this attracted people who lived in London and who knew the city very well. For example, if you have a furniture business and one day you decide that you no longer want to assemble furniture for your customers, you probably would end up with a company called IKEA, the world's largest furniture company. Or if you own a computer business and one day you decide that to no longer sell your computers using a physical store, you probably would end up with a company called Dell Computers. Take the case of Bitcoin, the currency business, or Uber, or Airbnb, and the list goes on. Now, recognizing that when it comes to high performance, the majority is often wrong, it is time you stop optimizing that which should be buried and commit to innovating.
All right. That is all I had to say. I am okay now.
Sir, we are not able to see you. I believe the video aspect is not on.
You can't see me. Why is that? I'm not sharing my screen. Let me see if I have a video.
Your video is off.
Is that better?
Yeah, now we can see you. Yes. So we have one question from Mr. Kazi. Whether this is
Before you do that, I want to apologize for the quality on the video. I'm going to make the sound. I'm going to fix the sound problem. My apologies. I didn't realize on transmission it becomes worse. Okay, go ahead now.
Yeah. So it is from Mr. Kazi. His question is whether decisions are likely to be contaminated by nepotism or lack of law and order.
Nepotism is definitely a bias, right? That is, and I talked about so many biases. One of the biases where nepotism would fall into is what is called tribal bias. You are all Indians. When Indians play a test match against England, you are victims of tribal bias. You all shout and work for everything you see is in favor of India. Likewise, your school, your college, your family. Nepotism is tribal bias. Now, what's the other subject was? The other question was
lack of law and order.
Well, lack of law and order. Well, a crook might actually take advantage of that as a criterion in his decision making to peddle drugs. So yes, these are contaminations. But you must be careful because contamination is everywhere, ladies and gentlemen, and I feel, please don't think bad about this, but you guys have to really focus because the decisions you made to date is why you are where you are and why you are not where you are, should be, if that's the case. But what I can guarantee you is, whatever you've been doing up to now, it will not take you to the next level. You've got to learn, you've got to spend time, at least 15 minutes a day, do it for self-improvement.
Yes, absolutely. Our next question is from Mr. Gaurang Joshipura. Which is better between individual decision versus collective decision?
Interesting thing. You may have recalled, I showed that when NASA lost Challenger and I forget the other one, whatever it is, the other thing, they conducted a major audit and they found that 1,600 safety waivers were granted that caused that failure. At NASA, this is what we call team decisions. Team decisions are victims of groupthink, where people go along to get along, or the guy with the highest pay grade has the say. If you look at your own meetings, you collect a group of people, half of them don't even care to be there. They just want to get back to whatever they're doing, and they're there because they were told to come. And also remember, a group consensus meeting is nothing but a collection of individual decisions. So a group decision starts with individual decisions. In fact, my advice to all of you is, if ever you are calling a team to decide on something, demand that every member makes a decision and comes to the table and defend the decision. Don't come there to make the decision. Come there to defend the decision.
Absolutely. So our next question is from Mr. Pankaj Verma. So what would be the source of motivation, or in the other words, the way to try again after multiple decision failure later on?
It's such a kind of, with due respect, it's a difficult question to say what is the motivation. I can assure you, I'm not trying to sell my training here, but with proper training, you will be equipped with the methodology. And that's why we give our software free. I could be selling my software. These are developed by our company, and they're worth probably more than $1,000 per pop. But we give it free to our students because we want you to establish a pattern of saying, we'll run the model, we'll do a decision validation or a zone map, and look at the most important thing is to ask, and here's the important thing. Whenever you make a decision, you make some assumptions. Right? Let's say I am going to find a daughter-in-law for my son. I might say, I keep going back to all the wedding stuff, you know, because of the Asian culture. But let's say I'm saying she's got to be good looking, good healthy, good family, dowry, good education, English speaking. Now, after you model, our model will create a picture that says, Preeti is the perfect fit. However, if you're willing to give up on English speaking girl, Jasmine is a better girl. If you're willing to give up income potential, Shireen is better, whatever it is. So, and here's listen to the statement. What decision validation does is studies the sensitivity of your decision to your original assumptions. Because you made this assumption thinking they're important. Now it's giving you a picture and saying, are you really interested in these things? Because if you're willing to give up on this, there's a better person. It could be a recruitment, or it could be a branch location, or it could be buying some products in procurement. Whatever you do, you want to look at the sensitivity of the original assumptions, the decision. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Rol. It was definitely an insightful session and a great learning. Definitely our participants have gained a lot of learning from this session, and we would love to have many such sessions ahead. So thank you so much for the session.
I want to, before I go,
yes,
can I add something in general for the benefit of the team here?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, this is something that I do as a service to people, which is when you are looking for your passion in life, all of you, some of you are young there, some of you are older, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what your age group, ask these two questions. You may not have the answer to these two questions immediately, but follow this. Question number one, and please listen carefully. If I got $10 million as a lottery today, what will I do with my time? Not the money. If I had $10 million today and everything I need, what will I do with my time? Question number one. Question number two is, if my doctor says I have only 1 year to live, what would I do with my time? How would I spend it? These two will guide you to your passion. 22 years ago, I thought about these two questions. I said, no, I'm a research scientist. I was doing exceptionally well. And I'm an engineer by profession. But once I asked these two questions, I realized my passion. And I haven't changed that for anything in the world. And I will not change it because I found my space. It is a blessing to be able to find why you wake up in the morning. And that is my joy. And if you don't know, I'll tell you something. As I said, I'm 76 years old. I've even paid for my funeral and passed all my assets to a trust. I don't go after anything in life. I enjoy life to the fullest. Okay. God bless you all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Rol. It was really insightful. Thank you for being with us and taking us through this wonderful journey of knowledge. Thank you so much. Now, before we conclude with today's session, we would also want to thank all the association for supporting HRAI event. To begin with, we have Geisha IT Association. Geisha is the ICT vendor of Gujarat to the world and nurtures, fosters, and tracks the ICT industry of Gujarat. It is the only state-level association for electronics, software, IT, ITES, BPO, KPO, LPO, telecom, ISP, networking, and IT education, which is recognized by the government of Gujarat. Federation of Gujarat Industries was founded in the year 1918. It is one of the oldest active socially conscious industrial associations in the country. The Federation of Gujarat Industries aimed at promoting, protecting, and projecting the interest of industries and also catering to the needs of the community at large. NASSCOM COE Gandhinagar. NASSCOM was announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in July 2015 as a part of Digital India initiative to jumpstart the IoT ecosystem, taking advantage of India's IT strength in the country. The Center of Excellence for IoT India at IIT Gandhinagar, Gujarat is a Digital India initiative to jumpstart the IoT ecosystem in India, taking advantage of India's IT strength and help country attain a leadership role in the convergent area of hardware and software. Bharat Nirman was set up in the early 1980s and was registered as a charitable and public utility organization on 9th June 1980. The main objective with which the society was set up was to revive all ancient Indian science and propagate Indian way of life, culture, and development. Lucknow Management Association was formed as a local chapter of AIMA in 1976. Establishment of IIM at Lucknow in 1984 gave flip to LMA's endeavors in profiliation of management knowledge and taking the management movement forward. Thank you once again, dear panel members and our participants, for joining us today. Do join us for our next webinar on the 23rd of July, 2020, which is tomorrow, a discussion on work, workforces, and workplaces, redefined and renewed. See you soon, stay safe, take care, and bye for now.
Bye from me.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.